I've got some great trips planned this year that I'm really excited about. I'm hoping you do also, since that's kind of what we're about here at Amateur Traveler. Vacation season is nearly upon us. This year, treat yourself to luxe upgrades that you deserve with Quince's high quality travel essentials at fair prices, like lightweight European linen styles from $30, washable silk tops, and comfy lounge sets, premium luggage options, and stylish tote bags to carry it all. The best part? All Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts out the cost to the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I love that. I'm setting aside my Quince travel pants and my cashmere sweater for my next trip to the East Coast. For your next trip, treat yourself to the luxe upgrades you deserve from Quince. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns, plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Hey, Kristen, how's it tracking?
With Carvana Value Tracker.
What else?
Oh, it's tracking. In fact, Value Surge Alert trucks up 2.5%, vans down 1.7.
Just as predicted.
Mm-hmm.
So, we gonna...
I don't know. Could sell, could hold.
The power to always know our car's worth.
Exhilarating, isn't it?
Tracking.
Always know your car's worth with Carvana Value Tracker.
Amateur Traveler, episode 941. Today, Amateur Traveler talks about temples, tea plantations, and tigers, maybe, Chinatown, biodegradable clay idols, and the remnants of the British East India Company and the British Raj as we go to Kolkata, India. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Kolkata. I'd like to welcome to the show Sam Sarkar, who just started blogging at travelswithdrsam.com, and he's come to talk to us about Kolkata, India. Sam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm a big fan. I've listened to your show for years, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
And I feel like I should call you Dr. Sam now, but now that I know that you
Sam is good.
were a practicing physician for years. So, Kolkata, we're in India. Can you put it on the map where we are in India?
Yeah, so Kolkata is in the eastern part of India. The shape of India is like a diamond. So Delhi is in the north, Mumbai is in the west, and Kolkata is on the other eastern end. In fact, Kolkata is closer to Bangkok than it is to Mumbai. So that would give you some perspective
Okay.
on where it is.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Kolkata?
It's a real hidden secret. This is a city that has grand colonial buildings. Used to be the second city of the British Empire for the longest time. The first US consulate in the world was set up in Kolkata, even before Thomas Jefferson was president in the late 1700s. It's a city that has produced 6 Nobel laureates. There's a lot of art and culture, festivals, outstanding food. So I think there's a lot to see.
Excellent. And when we say Kolkata, many people are still going to be more familiar with this by a different name. And this used to be, now I can't say the original name, this used to be
Calcutta.
Calcutta.
Yeah.
Why the name change and when was that?
So the city, in terms of India, which is a very old culture, is relatively new. It was founded by a British merchant for the East India Company around 1690. There were 3 villages on the banks of the river Hooghly, which is a branch of the Ganges. And he just picked the place because it was not too far from the ocean and he thought it was a good place for a trading post. The reason the name came up was because one of the villages was called Kolkata, which was based on a Kali temple. That's one of the Hindu goddesses.
Yeah.
And there was a Kali temple there, which still exists today, and it's hundreds of years old, very holy. So they couldn't pronounce, the British couldn't pronounce this Kolkata, so they just called it Calcutta. And that's how it became Calcutta. And it was till 2001 when the Government went on a name changing spree and changed the name of almost every street and every square, every monument. Fortunately, they left some of them alone, but that was when the city name was changed to Kolkata. I think they ended up spending a lot of money just changing all the signs because the Calcutta police became Kolkata police, things like that. So
Got it. Excellent. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
I think the most interesting part of the city is to see the European heritage. And first of all, let's take a step back. There's no direct flight from the US or Europe to Kolkata right now, and I'll talk a little bit about why. So it's a very long way to get there. You'd have to either go through Dubai or through Singapore or Bangkok. So you're talking about close to 24 hours to get there from North
Hmm.
America and maybe 14, 15, 16 hours from Europe. So I think you'd have to give yourself at least half a day to just rest, get over your jet lag before you even start exploring. Also, you've been to India, so you know that it's overwhelming, especially for
Can
someone
be.
who's not been there before or not been to such a crowded, highly dense country. And Kolkata is even denser than most Indian cities. It's relatively small in size because the city is wedged between the river and wetlands. So it's literally 6 to 8 miles across for most of the area. So it grew north and south, but the main city is just in the center, which is very small and very densely populated. I think you need to give yourself some time to get used to the high density, the noise, the honking, the people. There are street vendors everywhere.
Hmm.
It's like a bazaar everywhere. But once you've taken that into account, I would start exploring the European heritage. So there are these beautiful buildings all over the center part of the city. Unfortunately, a lot of them were torn down and ugly modern buildings have gone up there. But over the last, I would say 25, 30 years, there's been a real movement to restore and rejuvenate old buildings. And so a lot of them have been repurposed. So the city used to have two parts: the European or White Town, which is what we're talking about, the European buildings, and the
Hmm.
rest was the native town, which is a series of alleyways and old buildings. There are also a lot of old palaces there, which belong to the rich landed class and the local kings and all that. But so my recommendation would be the best way to see these and get a feel for the history of the city would be to take a walking tour.
Okay.
There are a number of local people who do these walking tours, which are 3 or 4 hours.
Do you recommend a particular way to find one of these walking tours, particular website or a particular guide you recommend?
Yes, so there's one called calcuttawalks.com.
Okay.
They've been around for the longest time. So they have these young people who really know the history of the city. They take you on a walk through a city that is unbelievable, but there are many churches, and I'll talk about them in a little bit. There are synagogues. Most of the Jewish people have left the city, and the synagogues are maintained by Muslims, which is, I think, unusual anywhere in the world, but they're perfectly preserved. And it's just the mix in the city is just unbelievable.
Now, why a strong Jewish presence at one time? Do you know?
Yes. So when the British consolidated their position and built Calcutta as their main city, they first built a fort called Fort William, which still exists today. And it's right in the center of the city because they had a lot of fight with other colonial powers, including
Hmm.
the French and the Portuguese. Once they consolidated their position in the late 1700s by defeating the local Nawab of Bengal, Bengal is the state in which
Right.
Kolkata is, they basically start building the city up. And as the city grew, they put up grand buildings. It was a main trading center for Asia. The British Empire at that time controlled literally 25% of the world's land mass and population. And this
Right.
was the second base. So a lot of traders came from all over. There were large Armenian community, large Jewish, a lot of Greeks, and other Europeans, and also Chinese came in to trade, and they set up sugar factories. Kolkata is the only city in India that has a Chinatown. In fact, there are two Chinatowns that still exist. So all the population groups have been declining because of the decline in the economy. Once Israel was formed, a bulk of the Jewish people left, but there are, I think, a few hundred still left. Chinese, there are a few thousand left. Most of them also moved. So it's a really fascinating mix of cultures, and it's not what you would expect. You don't expect to see a building
Right.
like you would see in London in the middle of a tropical city.
So you started us down in that historic area. Are we starting with Fort William or are we starting someplace else?
No, Fort William is off limits because it's now controlled by the Indian Army and you need a
Got it.
special permit to get in. So it's not really a tourist attraction. But the center of the city has this huge green area. It's called the Maidan, Maidan. It's like New York Central Park, but it's larger. And it's basically a green space. On the southern end of this green space is the most spectacular building in the city. It's called Victoria Memorial. It was built to honor Queen Victoria. Unfortunately, she passed away before even the construction started. But this building is commonly referred to as the British Taj Mahal. It's bigger than the Taj Mahal. They use the same marble that's used to build the Taj Mahal. It's really a spectacular building surrounded by 60 acres of beautiful gardens. And it's one of the buildings that's really well maintained. It's also really cheap to get in. Just to see the gardens and the outside is only 30 rupees, which is like 40 cents. In India, there are two prices for foreigners and
Right.
locals.
Sure.
So if you wanted to get inside and look at the inside of the building, where there are art galleries and other historical displays, I believe it's 500 rupees, which is like $6. So it's not expensive at all.
No. Yeah.
And then right next to that is St. Paul's Cathedral. This is the Gothic cathedral that was built in the 1800s. It was the second Anglican church in Kolkata. There's beautiful stained glass. It's open all day. You can just walk in and out. Then you need to get on a car and cross that whole central park that we were talking about. As you go north, you will have Fort William on the left. You can see it. There'll be like Indian army tanks parked outside and stuff like that. On the
Hmm.
right, the modern skyline of Kolkata with new skyscrapers and all that. And then you're going to where the green park ends is where the actual central business district starts with all these historic, beautiful buildings. There's the High Court building, which is a Gothic brick structure. There's the governor's house. There's a famous Great Eastern Hotel, which is the oldest hotel in Asia that's been continuously running. It's been refurbished under new ownership. It's a great place to go and have an evening tea or a glass of wine or a meal. Mark Twain lived there among many other famous people. So Mark Twain, I believe, spent almost a month in Calcutta and he stayed at the Great Eastern Hotel.
Hmm.
Further down is a building called Writers Building. It's a grand red brick building that used to be the headquarters of the East India Company, built in the 1700s. So it's really old. Right next to it is the General Post Office. This has got a huge dome. It's beautifully lit up at night. So it's worth going back at night to see some of these buildings all lit up. There's a local non-profit that's been restoring and lighting up all these old buildings. And so it's worth just, and remember, Kolkata being so far east and India having one time zone, it usually gets dark very early, like 5 p.m. it's
Oh,
dark.
sure. Yeah.
So you can just go out after 5 p.m. and just see all these buildings are lit up.
And actually, that brings me to a question of when to go because I'm thinking the evening is also going to be cooler. The summers there are going to be pretty hot.
Yes, that's an excellent point. The weather is comfortable from November to February.
Okay.
However, that's when also the pollution is really bad.
Hmm.
The AQI is frequently 200 plus. You'd probably have to wear a mask. But it is cooler. It is very comfortable. A light jacket in the evening, and that's all you need. March to May is it's really hot and humid. It's similar to what like Singapore or Bangkok would be that time. From June, it's monsoon season. It rains 70 to 80 inches a year. So you're going to have pouring rain on most days. It's much cooler, but it may be difficult to get around because the streets get flooded sometimes. Sometimes it'll rain nonstop for 3 or 4 days. You do have storms coming in from the Bay of Bengal. After October is probably the best shoulder season when it's hot, but it's not that hot and it's not that polluted as it gets in December and January.
Okay.
So Apart from St. Paul's Cathedral, the oldest Anglican church is one called St. John's Church, and that's right in the central business district. It's a beautiful old church with a lot of history. They have memorials for many people. It's definitely worth a visit. Then, as I said, there are two synagogues. There's an Armenian church, which is actually the oldest church in the city. It's more than 300 years old. And these are all relatively well preserved and definitely worth a visit. After this, the other place I think which is really worth visiting is South Park Street Cemetery. I know cemetery sounds odd, but Park Street it's not called Park Street officially anymore. It's actually called Mother Teresa Avenue, based after Mother Teresa. But everyone calls it Park Street. And on the southern end of Park Street is a cemetery where the British colonialists who died in Kolkata are buried. So it's a fascinating place. It's just 10 rupees to get in. It's pretty well maintained. Walking around, seeing it's like going to Recoleta in Buenos Aires, except it's not that touristy. There are no
Okay.
crowds. It's just a piece of colonial history, graves from the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. It's fascinating. So that would cover most of the European part of Kolkata. Then you need to go out and see the rest of the city. And my number one recommendation would be to go to a street called College Street. And it's named because there's the university, which, by the way, is the first university in India and Asia. There's a medical school, which is the first medical school in Asia. And there are a number of other universities. This street has the world's largest secondhand book market.
Hmm.
So it's overwhelming. Both sides of the street, the pavements are taken over by booksellers, and you can literally find any book. I wouldn't be surprised if you found like a 19th century edition of some book, which for a few rupees. There are also multiple bookstores there, and there's a very famous India coffee house that's been around for 150 years or so. And it's a must visit because this is where revolutionaries met, a lot of the intellectuals, and the city has many well known Indian writers, including the Nobel Prize winner Tagore, the filmmaker Satyajit Ray. So people like that would meet for coffee and talk up ideas. So it's similar to what you would find in like a Paris coffee house.
And that's the
Um,
College Street Coffee House?
yeah, it's called the
Okay.
India Coffee House. It's not a fancy. It's interesting, and if you go there, you'll probably have to share a table with other people because it's quite busy all the time. But it's
Mhm.
quite an experience just to go there, have a cup of coffee, and come out.
Do you say data or data? Well, at my house, we say data. And for the longest time, I thought paying a fortune on my monthly data plan was just normal. That was until I found out about Mint Mobile and their premium wireless plans that start at just 15 bucks a month. The quality of the Mint Mobile wireless service is just as good as my old provider, but costs less. Say bye bye to your overpriced wireless plans, jaw dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you. All plans come with high speed data, or data, your choice, and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get $3 of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for 15 bucks a month. No matter how you say it, don't overpay for it. Shop data plans at mintmobile.com/traveler. That's mintmobile.com/traveler. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5 gigabyte plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. And thanks to Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
The other must see is a Potter's Colony, which is in the northern end of the city. It's very hard to get to. So What happens in Kolkata and in Bengal is they have multiple festivals, and I'll talk about the festivals later. But during when they have these religious Hindu festivals, they put up idols or make idols which are temporary, made out of
Hmm.
straw and clay. And then
Hmm.
after the festival is over, these are placed in the river so that they just blend, the clay just melts back into nature. So, this colony where there are hundreds of studios, this is where all the clay idols are built. And they have to do it year round because of so many festivals and so many thousands of idols that are ordered by different organizations. So it's fascinating going there with a guide and just walking around and seeing them being built right in front of your eyes. They'll have the straw backbone, then they'll put clay on, then they'll paint it with non toxic paint. It's an experience that's really out of this world. Other than that, for people who are really interested in Rabindranath Tagore, he's India's most famous writer and poet. He's written the national anthem of two countries, India and Bangladesh. And he was the first Asian to win a Nobel Prize. His home, he donated and converted into an university, but they do have a museum there. It's not a great museum. However, you get a feel for how the rich people lived in the 19th century and early 20th century. And they have exhibits there which are worth seeing.
Before you go too far away, the place where the clay idols are made, I didn't catch where that was or how we were going to get there. You said it was hard to get to.
Yeah, it's called Kumartuli. That's Kumartuli.
Yep.
The easiest way to get there is to get a guide and a car with driver.
Okay.
I mean, you'll have to drive through narrow streets, but they know the way and they'll get you there.
Hmm.
It's safe. The best thing about Kolkata is it's really safe. It's probably one of the safest cities in the world. It's definitely the safest city in India. There's literally no crime. It is awkward for foreigners because people will stare at you a lot, as they do all over India. People may want to take selfies, but other than pickpocketing and things like that, there's no major crime, there's no violent crime. It's safe for women to be out even alone. My recommendation would be for anyone going there, other than the walking tours, just get a car with a driver. It's really cheap. It would cost probably between $30 and $40 a day. If you add a guide who speaks English, it would add another $10 or $20. So you're talking about $50 or $60 a day to have a car with a driver, with a guide who can take you around and show you everything there is to see. So it's really
And is there a
inexpensive.
particular website you would go to or location you would pick up a guide?
There are multiple travel agents who can just arrange it, or even your
Okay.
hotel can arrange it. The hotel is
Got
going
it.
to be more expensive because obviously that's another source of income for them. But there are a lot of local travel agents who you can look off TripAdvisor or just Google for local travel agents, and
Okay.
it's very easy to find a car and absolutely get an air conditioned car, even if it's winter, because you don't want to open the windows with all the dust and the pollution. You want the
Got it.
vent to be running, right?
Cool. Where to next?
So I was just going to talk about the festival, and the
Mm.
reason for that is because the biggest festival there is something called Durga Puja. Usually happens end of September or the first half of October. The calendar is different for the Hindu calendar from the Western calendar, and it's a lunar based calendar. So that's why the date changes every year. This is a week long festival where the whole city is decked up. It got a UNESCO World Heritage tag about, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, there have been like, I think, 25,000 people flocking from Europe to see the festival. It's much, much bigger than the carnival in Rio or in New Orleans. The whole city is decked up. Every neighborhood, they build these temporary structures. They would start in July or August and then just before the festival starts. So the goddess idol would be inside the structure, but the structure itself could be anything. That depending on what they want to build, they would build, for example, the White House or the Capitol
Hmm.
building or Big Ben or something like that. And it's just spectacular. The artists are so skilled, and these are all lit up at night. The downside is it's extremely crowded. You have hundreds of thousands of people walking through this
Sure.
whole week. But there's an easy way out. The tourist department has come up with these air conditioned buses that take tourists around to They start at around 10 p.m. and they end at 6 a.m. and they show you the best of the best. So they'll show you the best 20 or 25 structures and idols around.
Oh, I didn't catch that there were that many different ones each year over
There
the
are
year.
probably 1,000 to 1,500 all over the
Oh.
city. But the big ones, there are some spectacular ones where they spend in dollars, it would be close to a couple of $1 billion to just build that temporary structure. It is really spectacular. People from all over India come to see it. It's very well known. As I said, the downside is the crowds, but if you
Right.
take the night bus or you arrange for a private vehicle at night, they can take you around. And the crowds after 10 p.m. are very light because the public transport essentially stops. So people from the outside the city can't get in. So it is definitely worth seeing. If you Google pictures of Durga Puja, you'll see what I mean. But it's not for the faint-hearted. You have to be prepared for crowds.
I feel India may not be for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, I haven't personally done the tourist bus, but I know people who have. And what they've said is because it's through the tourist department, they have an arrangement with the cops. So they have a special entry for people who are on the
Hmm.
bus. So they'll drive right up to the structure, then they'll just guide you in, and you're in and out in 20 minutes. So that's something to consider if someone's really adventurous and wants a taste of different culture.
Okay. What else should we do when we're in Kolkata?
Well, shopping is big. So there are lots and lots of local handicrafts, really inexpensive. So one must, and I forgot to mention this, but right in the center of town, this market called New Market. It's a smaller version of, say, the Grand Bazaar in Istanbul.
Okay.
It was actually
Which
the
means it's a covered market.
It is a covered market. It has like hundreds of small stalls. The official name is actually Sir Stuart Hogg Market. However, if you ask anyone where is Hogg Market, no one knows the name. Everyone calls it New Market, even though it's 150 years old. It's in a very crowded area because you have vendors surrounding the market. But it is like being in a bazaar in Morocco or Turkey. And inside, they sell everything from fresh flowers to pets. I think the pets they have now banned in India. You can't sell pets anymore, but you can get fresh meat, you can get fresh fish. And there is a Jewish bakery there called Nahum's. That's Nahoum apostrophe S. It's unique because I think it's about 125 years old. Still run by a Jewish family. They make the best Christmas cakes in town. So Christmas Eve and on Christmas there'll be line for of hundreds of people lined outside to get their cakes. So the interesting part is that this is a Jewish bakery. Exclusively all the bakers are Muslims and all the clientele are Hindus. And everyone's buying Christmas cakes and things like that. So it's what the city is. It's just a mix of different cultures, and it's really fascinating. And everyone living in peace. There have not been any riots or anything since the country was divided. So it's a fascinating piece of history.
Hmm.
Other than that, the local government, they have this chain of handicraft stores. It's called the World Bengal Store. There's one right on the famous Park Street, which is the high street of the city with all the fancy restaurants and shops. And it's right next to a bookstore called Oxford Bookstore, which everyone knows. Shopping there would be an eye opener, and it's fair priced, and the money goes directly to the artisans. There is also a mall in the southern parts of the city which only has these emporiums from different states of India. So if you want to go and see stuff from all over India, that would be a good place to go to.
Okay.
Other than that, Kolkata is famous for jewelry and for saris. I know Westerners are probably not interested in saris, but the handicraft, the craftsmanship, and the silk saris, you might just want to buy one to hang on your wall or something like that. And jewelry stores are everywhere because jewelry is big in the culture. It's beautiful handcrafted jewelry. You don't have to buy, you can just go and take a look. It's worth seeing all the craftsmanship.
Okay.
And for those who want to see the more modern side, there are a lot of new malls which have all kinds of stores. I personally don't see a reason why one would want to go to a Western style mall, but if that's your thing, You want to get away from and be in a cleaner, air conditioned place. Makes perfect sense. You'll see long lines outside the KFC and McDonald's and Pizza Huts, but it's good for shopping too because they have all kinds of stores too.
Yeah, personally, if I want to go to a mall and see a lot of people from India, I've got that within a couple miles of my house.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to do in Kolkata? Because then I do want to ask you about side trips also.
Yes, yes. So I actually forgot to mention about the temples. Now, Kolkata is not really a big temple town, unlike some other places in India.
Hmm.
And the temple architecture in Bengal is very simple. It's not the intricate carving or grand structures that people are used to seeing from South India or from the West. But there are two famous Kali temples. The one that the city is named after is in a very congested neighborhood. Again, it's going to be difficult to get in and out over there because of the crowds. However, if one wants to go and see it, sure. It's not that big, but it's historic. But there's another Kali temple which is in
And
the
is that
north.
the Kaligat?
Yes, Kali Ghati Kali temple. But there's another Kali temple which is in the northern fringes of the city called Dakshineshwar. It's a little hard to pronounce, but it's Dakshineshwar. And this is a relatively new temple, only 200, I believe 250 years old. That's on the banks of the river. It's much prettier. It's much cleaner. It's less crowded, especially if you go early in the morning. And it's very easy to get to, either by car or even the metro. The subway actually goes directly and ends right there. If someone's brave enough to get on the subway, you can get there in 20 minutes from
And
Central.
brave enough to get on the subway, that there's a story there. So it's crowded, I'm assuming.
It is
'Cause
very crowded, but only during rush hour, I believe.
okay, usually I find subway systems are relatively easy to figure out for tourists. So is there any reason we shouldn't be brave enough to get on the subway?
Good question. The problem is that Kolkata has about 6 or 7 lines under construction, but they're not all complete. So there are like little fragments of one subway line running
Got it.
for
Okay.
5 miles, and then there's no subway, and then another line starts. But this particular line that we're talking about, this has been around for since 1984. So it's a old subway line. It will be very crowded during rush hour, but rush
Sure.
hour there is more like from, I would say, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Everything's slow and late. So people go to work late, they leave work late, they go
Hmm.
to bed late, they eat late. If you go like at 6 or 7 in the morning, it's going to be empty. And you can reach the temple in 20 minutes from central
Okay.
Kolkata. And it's very safe, it's air conditioned, it's comfortable. It's underground for the most part, and then it goes above ground in the last, I think, few miles.
So it sounds like 10, 20 years from now, the metro is going to be terrific.
I think actually later this year is going to be terrific because they just
Okay.
built a train that goes under the river connecting the two train stations. That's going to open, I believe, in a couple of months.
Okay.
There's a line to the airport that's going to open later this year. So it is coming together. I think it's a question of a little more time. The subway is very safe. Again, other than pickpockets, you don't have anything to worry about. It's not clean like the Dubai or Singapore subway, but it's not bad.
Okay.
And there are a couple of other temples which are prettier within the city. There's something called the Birla Temple. The Birlas are like the richest family of the city. They're one of the Indian billionaire families. And they have built this temple, which is in a pretty easy to get to spot on one of the main roads. It's beautiful. It's carved like you would see in northwest India. And there are a couple of Jain temples. Jain is
Hmm.
another religion, it's a small sect of Hindu religion, and their temples tend to be very decorative. And there are a couple of them which any car driver or guide would know. They're worth a visit. And then, if you're more adventurous, 80 miles north of Kolkata is the headquarters of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the Hare Rama, Hare Krishna people that you see everywhere. So their headquarters is right there. They have about, I think, 300 or 400 acres of land on the banks of the river. They're building the largest religious structure in the world. My wife and
Hmm.
I went there, I think, about 3 years ago. It was almost complete. I just checked their website and they said they're going to open in 26. So, this humongous temple with three blue domes, which is going to be the largest religious structure in the world, And the central dome is the largest dome in the world. It's larger than the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. It's larger than the Vatican. It's larger than the Capitol. So
Hmm.
it's quite a sight. Even though it's incomplete, it's just spectacular just to stand there and look at it. It's not that difficult to get to. You can go by your own car. It's 2.5 hour drive. But ISKCON, they provide round trip bus trips from Kolkata. They also have a ferry that runs from central Kolkata to their temple. I don't know how long the ferry takes. I've never done that. I've gone by road. But it's easy. It's a day trip. You just go in the morning, maybe have lunch there and come back. So that would cover most of the temples in the vicinity. Side trips, I have a lot of interesting ideas. We didn't talk about where to stay.
Oh, okay.
So it's so inexpensive that I would only stay in a 5 star or 4 star hotel. You have chains, even the American chains, you have Marriott, you have Hyatt, you have Westin, you have the European chains, Novotel, Ibis. All of them have hotels now there, plus the Indian chains, the Taj, ITC. So just pick the one. They're usually $100 a night or less, especially if it's a little off season. Like they'll be very high end of December, beginning of January, because a lot of weddings happen at that time, a lot of conventions and meetings. But it's really inexpensive if you consider that that usually includes sumptuous breakfast. So that takes care of one meal at least. But you want to pick a hotel which is close to the center of town, because even if
Okay.
you're far away, it's not going to take you a long time to get anywhere, but it's still a waste of time to get in a car and just to go anywhere further out. So just pick a good hotel in a central location. That's my recommendation.
Okay.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
So the two other things I wanted to talk about is the food and then side trips, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Sounds good.
Okay, so the food is very interesting because traditionally Bengali food, which is the local culture, Bengalis, Bay of Bengal, consisted of just rice and river fish. However, because of all the immigration from Europe and Chinese, the food has transformed completely. There is also another issue. The vegetarian food in Bengal is just outstanding. And there's a reason for that. Women used to become widows at a very young age in the old days because usually older men would marry younger women and then they passed away and leaving these young widows. And widows were forbidden from eating fish or eggs or meat. And so they devised these vegetarian curries, which are out of this world. They are not available anywhere else in India. You could only get them there. But I personally, I would eat one of those rather than eat a mutton curry or a chicken curry or something like that. They're that good. So there are lots of these chains of Bengali restaurants. The most famous being one called Six Baliganj Place. And that's named after the original location, which is in a old mansion that they reconverted or repurposed into a restaurant. The best way to get a taste of the food is to go and have a lunch buffet, which will cost you probably $8 or $10, I think, max. But you get a choice of 15, 20 dishes and you can get a feel for the cuisine because ordering off a menu is very hard without someone to guide you. If you like something, you can always go back and try it again. But three dishes that really stand out is like a white fish, which is covered in a mustard paste and then steamed in a banana leaf. It's similar to some Cambodian and Thai dishes, but it tastes completely different. There's also prawns in coconut milk. Again, that sounds like a Thai panang, but it tastes completely different. And then a spicy goat, which is called mutton over there, spicy mutton curry. That's like the specialty of non-vegetarian Bengali cuisine.
And when you say spicy, within the spectrum of India, where spicy can mean really spicy, is this as hot?
It's not as hot, but it has a lot of spices.
Okay.
So it's not that hot. And especially if you go to one of the fancier restaurants, you can ask them to tone it down. So they will. Because everything's prepared fresh. So it's not like they're just going to ladle it out of a pot and just give it to you. The other thing that Bengal or Kolkata is famous for is the sweets. These are like, what Paris, you'd have pastries and macaroons and all that. So
Hmm.
there are these sweet shops all over the city, everywhere. And most of the sweets are made out of cottage cheese, and it's a must try.
Okay.
Anyone can guide you to any of the shops. Most of them are hundreds of years old. A lot of them have gotten really trendy and modern, so they've cut down on the amount of fat and sugar, but they're just tasty. I'm not a sweet person, but even I have a hard time not having at least once or twice. Other than the Bengali food, the Chinese food over there is just awesome because of the large Chinese community. There's something called Indo-Chinese cuisine that's developed over there. That's actually spread all over India, but the origins are still in Kolkata, and the food is the best over there. So you have Chinese food, but it's not like the food in China or Hong Kong. It's Indian ingredients. You'll have cilantro in it. You'll have green chilies in the food. It's spicier. It's really worth it. And there are lots of these Chinese restaurants on Park Street and everywhere else. And it's definitely something worth trying. The third food, and I've heard you talk about this when you've talked about India in the past, is the biryani, the Mughlai food, the food
Sure.
of
Yeah.
the Mughals who ruled India before the British. But the Kolkata biryani is completely different. And there are many reasons for that. The Nawab from North India was exiled by the British in Kolkata, and he was so poor, according to local legend, that they didn't have enough meat for the biryani. So the chef started adding potatoes and eggs to the biryani, and the Nawab really liked it. And so that's what Kolkata biryani is. It's the only place in the world where you'll have biryani which has potatoes and eggs in it. And it's more savory and definitely a different taste than other biryanis. So that's definitely worth trying. I think that pretty much covers the food.
Okay.
There are also a lot of good bars, rooftop bars, nightclubs, jazz clubs, live music. And this is not on weekends, it's 7 days a week. So, and usually it's easier to go in the middle of the week because it's less crowded. On Park Street itself, you'll find a number of bars and restaurants. Some of them were started by Europeans in 100 years ago that still play jazz or Western music. And as I said, it's very inexpensive. You can have a great meal with a couple of drinks for under $20 a person and listen to live music.
And a large variety of live music, or what, or Indian music, or what kind of music would I find?
So most of the places would play Indian music, unfortunately, but there are
Not
specific.
if that's what you like.
Yes, but specifically around Park Street and a lot of other
Hmm.
places, they do play Western jazz. There is actually an annual jazz festival in Kolkata too. There are a lot
Hmm.
of jazz musicians. There are also local rock bands who will play covers of Western rock songs. So, for example, there's a restaurant called Trinkaz on Park Street, which I go to every time I'm there. I just love it. But they have live music every day. This was founded by a Swiss couple, I believe in 1924. So it's 100 years old. It's, of course, owned by a local now, but they've kept up the tradition. So they'll have 2 hours of Western music first in the evening. I think it's from 6 to 8 is Western music, and then 8 to 10 is Indian music. And people will come for dinner at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. So if you go at 6 p.m., it's empty. Take a, a seat in front of the stage, listen to some rendition of Madonna or Ed Sheeran or something like that. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I see. 6 to 8:30 is retro Bollywood.
Uh-huh.
8:45 to 10:45 is Western hits, and then 1 to 3 Saturday and Sunday is jazz. So it gets
Right. Okay. So I reverse the time, but you get the picture. So you
yep.
have the choice of all these different genres of music. And it's a really good street to walk around. There are a lot of bars. All bars are open till 2 a.m. Kolkata is one of the few places where you can have beef, pork, and have a drink every day up to 2 a.m.
Excellent. And then you talked about side trips.
Yes. So, talking about side trips, just less than 100 miles south of the city, between the city and the Bay of Bengal, is the Sundarbans forest, which is
Hmm.
the largest mangrove forest in the world. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's a national park. Problem is, it's hard to get to, and the infrastructure is not really well developed, but it's unique. I've been to the Amazon, I've been to Africa, but the beauty of the mangrove forest is just, it's awesome. So the easiest way to get there would be to do a river cruise. And there are a number
Okay.
of companies now running river cruises, which for 2 nights and 3 days would run about $500 a person, all inclusive. And they would leave right from downtown Kolkata, go down to the Sundarbans, anchor there for 2 nights, and then come back. The Sundarbans is famous for the Royal Bengal tiger. Unfortunately, they're very elusive and hard to see. I've been there a couple of times and never seen a tiger. But you will see crocodiles, you'll see deer, you'll see wild boar, all kinds of birds, dolphins, so turtles. So there is a lot of wildlife other than the tigers. But going on the big cruise ship, there's absolutely is almost zero chance of seeing a tiger because they usually hang around in the smaller channels where the cruise ship cannot go.
Hmm.
So the other alternative, there are a couple of resorts there. One that comes to mind is called Sundarban Tiger Camp. This would be roughly like a four-star resort. Not very expensive. It's about $150 to $200 per night for a couple, includes all meals. And they'll actually pick you up from your hotel in Kolkata and drop you back. So you have a 2 hour car ride through narrow village roads, and then you'll have a boat ride to the camp, which is on an island. And they can then take you on these small boats that get go into the narrow mangrove channels. And there your chances of
Got
seeing
it.
wildlife is much higher. So that would be my recommendation. So that's a 2 or 3 day trip. The other thing that a lot of people do not know is that Darjeeling, the famous tea, is
Hmm.
actually in Bengal, north of Kolkata. And Bengal is the only state in India that has snow capped mountains and the ocean. Unfortunately, the beaches are not really very nice, so I cannot recommend going to any of the beaches. But going up to the Himalayas and looking at Kanchenjunga, which is the third highest peak in the world and seems to hang over the town of Darjeeling, is a spectacle. So the easiest way to get to Darjeeling is to take a flight. It's about 45 minutes to an hour to the nearest airport, which is Bagdogra. There are multiple flights throughout the day. And it's very inexpensive, probably $50 each way or less.
Oh,
And for the more adventurous, you can take an overnight train if you want to really get a feel for what a train journey is like. But once you're in Bagdogra, if you've booked a good hotel in Darjeeling, a 4 or 5 star hotel, they'll usually pick you up. It's a 3 hour drive through the foothills. The road is narrow, hairpin turns. It's hair raising. It's actually a pretty scary drive, but you're not driving. And the speed is really slow. So they're driving at 20 miles per hour. But once you're in Darjeeling, it's again, unfortunately, it's not what it used to be. It's very crowded. But if you go in winter, like in December or January, it's going to be literally empty because Indian tourists only go there in summer when it's too hot elsewhere.
hmm.
But it'll be cold in winter. It might snow. You can also see Mount Everest from Darjeeling, but you have to go a little off town, maybe for 20-minute drive, and you can get a look at Mount Everest. You can actually, one of the popular activities there is to see the sunrise over Mount Everest and Kanchenjunga, and that's quite a sight. The unfortunate thing is because the way the Himalayas are, they're frequently foggy and cloudy, and so you may stay 3 days and not see any of the snow-capped mountains, but the chances of seeing are pretty high, especially early in the morning. Another option there is to stay in a tea garden estate. So a lot of the tea gardens have put in resorts in there. So that's a unique experience. You go and you're living in a little cottage in a tea garden surrounded by all these tea fields. They will be a little more expensive, but it's an all inclusive experience. And they'll pick you up from the airport too. And so you don't have to worry about transport. The other option from that airport, Dogra, that I was talking about, to go to Darjeeling is if you drive 2 to 3 hours east from there, it's called the Dooars. That's Dooars. This is like a savanna forest on the foothills of the Himalayas. There are tea gardens there, but there are two national parks there. And these national parks have one horned rhinoceros. Not many people know that India has their own rhinoceros. They're
I
smaller than the African
did not know
rhinoceros.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're pretty abandoned. So if you go further east, one state over, there's another national park that has thousands of rhinoceros. They're literally, you can see them like cows grazing in a field. But in this part of Bengal, North Bengal, there are a fair number of rhinoceros. I think the larger park has about 500 to 600 of them. So you are going to see them. But seeing a tiger or a leopard or a bear, which are also abandoned, is hard. But elephants, there are wild elephants, all kinds of wildlife. Unfortunately, staying inside the national park is very hard because the government runs their own lodges inside the national parks, and they're very hard to get into. To get a reservation, they're booked up months in advance and all that. But there are a lot of private resorts which are just outside the fringes of the national park, and these are usually like 4-star resorts. And you just stay in one of them. You take a car from the airport, get there in 2 3 hours. They are going to take you into the national park, and they can arrange for even an elephant safari where you go early in the morning, like at 5 a.m., get on the back of an elephant and go to the parts of the national park that you cannot with a SUV or a four-wheel drive. So it's quite an experience. And seeing a rhino is quite an experience, especially in Asia where you don't expect to see one. I think that's enough for one trip, but
I think I was going to say, I think we're at the point of wrap up. The only thing I'll say is you mentioned doing a cruise down from Kolkata. The other option, more of the luxury cruises, you could also cruise the other direction
Correct.
up to Varanasi, up the Ganges,
Correct.
which would be an interesting and whole separate idea here.
Right.
Anything else we need to know before we go to Kolkata, before we get to our wrap up questions?
As I said, the weather is an issue. If you don't mind the heat and the humidity, you can go anytime. Winter is definitely the best time. Definitely get a car with driver. Don't try to negotiate yourself. Walking is safe, but it's not a pleasant experience because of the crowds. And to see most of the European Kolkata, because that's the central business district, if you can pick a weekend, especially a Sunday, it would be ideal. There's going to be nobody around, the streets are empty, and you have the place all to yourself.
Got it. Excellent. And one thing we should say, geographically, you are so far to the east that if you were going to combine this with something else, you might even think about combining it with a trip to Bangladesh because you were pretty much on the doorstep at this point.
Right. So it's only, I think, a 30-minute flight to Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh.
Right.
There's also a train that runs between Kolkata and Dhaka. Not that I would recommend it, but there is. And then, as
I've
I
done
said,
night trains in India. They're an experience.
They have improved a lot. They have these newer trains which are more comfortable. I haven't ridden in one, but I've heard from others that they're pretty much nicer with better bathrooms and all that.
Yeah, in second class air conditioning, the bathroom was pretty much the hole in the floor to the tracks, but I didn't get it right in the first class one, so I can't tell you about that.
No, those days have changed, I think, finally.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. There's also Myanmar, which is close by. There's Bhutan.
Right.
That's another exotic country, which is only a 1-hour flight from Kolkata.
Yeah, when you're in Darjeeling, you are literally between Nepal and Bhutan. Excellent.
Yes.
As we get to our wrap-up questions, you are standing in the prettiest spot in and around Kolkata. Where are you standing, and what are you looking at?
I would be on a higher floor of one of the high-rise hotels, probably overlooking that whole green patch, green park in the center, overlooking the Victoria Memorial. If you're above the 20th or 30th floor, you're going to get a view of all these colonial buildings lit up at night and of the two main bridges lit up at night. So that's a spectacular view. And you're far away from all the dust, the pollution, the noise, and it's a spectacular view.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Kolkata.
Well, as I said, a synagogue taken care of by Muslims.
At a Jewish bakery, yeah.
and a Jewish bakery run by
Buying their
Muslims.
Christmas cakes.
Exactly. You got it.
Excellent. And if you had to summarize Kolkata in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Faded grand city.
Excellent. Excellent. Our guest again is Sam Sarkar, and Sam's blog again, which is just getting set up now, is travelswithDrSam.com. And do you have a post yet, or will you have a post by the time this comes out on Kolkata on your blog, Sam?
Yes, I do.
Excellent. And is there a particular one we're going to send people to?
There's one on Kolkata, so you can read up on that.
Excellent. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Sam, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your obvious love for Kolkata.
Thank you, Chris. This was really fun talking to you about this, and I look forward to hearing your other adventures too.
Llévate más de lo que esperas todos los días con el nuevo McValue en McDonald's. Ahora puedes comprar uno y sumarle otro por $1. Así que cuando tu equipo favorito enfrenta a sus rivales, enfrenta tus antojos con $5 Meal Deals. Y si estás corriendo para alcanzar el desayuno, corre al app para llevarte ofertas antes del cutoff. Tú decides, y con McValue, tu decisión siempre rinde más. Precios y participación pueden variar. BOGO $1 válido para un producto de igual o menor valor. Debe estar registrado en Rewards para ofertas en el app.
Springfest deals are still in full swing at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 bags of Stay Green Premium Color 2 cubic foot mulch for only $10. And get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, save up to $300 when you buy 2 or more select GE kitchen appliances of $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/16, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location while supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items.
A special thanks to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler financially. This is my day job after all now. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show and what you get, including first chance to get on an Amateur Traveler trip, then go to patreon.com/Amateur Traveler. Speaking of Amateur Traveler trips, you can sign up now for the Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan trip. Go to amateurtraveler.com/trips, the private Facebook group, to learn more. I had a comment from Allie on the episode we did with Matt on the Black Forest. My thanks to Matt for taking the time to fact check about the Brothers Grimm and deforestation. Pretty much every English-speaking blog waxes lyrically with some invented nonsense about how you can walk through the ancient trees which inspired the Brothers Grimm to write their stories. Romantic, but utter fiction on multiple levels. One point I think he sort of made but didn't entirely expand on was that the central location makes it very easy to drop in whilst traveling elsewhere in Western Europe. You don't need to spend a whole week or holiday there. You can easily squeeze in a few days whilst going from Paris to Munich or from Cologne to Switzerland/Italy, etc., with the train routes providing enough options of what to do. It's also directly across the river from the Alsace in France, so it would be easy to combine with that, though you would want a car to do so as a day trip. On a personal note, Triberg is by far my least favorite place in the Black Forest. I found it to be over-the-top tourist quiche with a busy main road through the middle of it, not to mention the €6 to €8 entry fee for the waterfalls. The village is nearby and just as easy to reach if you're going to by train from Offenburg in Kinzigtal, like Schiltach and Wulfach are much nicer. Titsi feels like Disneyland, but the lakefront is at least car-free and with a nice view. You get some little variations, vineyards on the western feet, half-tempered and red sandstone buildings in the north, higher points and views, and a view of the Alps in the south, but generally you can just pick anywhere in the Black Forest and have some lovely landscapes to yourself. I cycled the entire length of it in July, and Triberg, Titisee, and Mummelsee Feldberg were the only busy spots. Mostly, I was entirely alone. Thanks so much, Ellie, and thanks for your comments there. New in my life is a new granddaughter. New on the blog is not so much because new granddaughter. So we're going to wrap up this episode of Amateur Traveler there. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.